guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Billy. Hi everyone. We are both program managers at 500 Startups. So Leonard is based in US, I'm based in Singapore. So both of us are community builders that engage with startups, mentors, corporate partners through the various programs in our respective regions. So really happy today to be invited to this session for this insight sharing. So today I'll be doing the sharing first, and then if you have any questions, feel free to post it on the chat, and we can answer them later on at the end of the session. So our mission at 500 Startups is to uplift people and economies through entrepreneurship. So we have been fortunate to see our mission's importance come to life now more than ever during these times of change. So 500 Startups also currently ranks the top most active early stage investor in the world, according to PitchBook. So for the past decade alone, we have been building an incredible global network of founders, investors, universities, foundations, and corporates that have enabled us to achieve these remarkable results. So with over 2,500 portfolio companies, and we are still growing daily, we have kind of perfected the science and art of startup selection and also investments. So we typically review over 10,000 startups per year and invest in just 1 to 2% of them. So we have investments over 77 countries as well and run over 60 programs till date. So we have more than 5,000 active founders within our network and over 350 expert mentors around the world. So these are some of the many companies that were invested in. So unicorns like Twilio, Canva, so some of them you've heard, and Grab, obviously here in the region. So these achievements are also a testament to our rigorous investment management strategy and our results-driven startup accelerator development process. So at 500, we look at startups and ecosystems as a journey. So in this journey, we find ourselves dedicating our efforts to three main key stages. So this has helped us to design programs best fit for each of these stages. So the first being ideation stage, where we recruit and also meet founders at the beginning of the journey, where we are talking about people like aspiring entrepreneurs, passionate founders to be who want to solve the big problems in the society. So our 500 Ignition program sets these founders up for the journey ahead. So in the program alone, we work on things like finding your team, identifying your problem solution fit, and also validating your idea. So as founders start to grow, we then identify them at the developmental stage, so the second stage. So this is where our accelerator programs sit. We've been running our flagship San Francisco accelerator for 10 years now. So at this stage, we have also a growth program, which helps startups fuel growth to scale up. So, and then of course, the third one, which is at the growth stage, at the peak of this journey, our market access programs are also crafted to drive these growth stage startups into expanding beyond their own market, accessing the different markets around the world. So as 500 join startups on their journey, we then see the local ecosystem start to thrive as startups give back and also continue to contribute to the growth of our global community. So having done several and numerous programs, especially in Southeast Asia region and also the APAC region, we have seen some of these trends that come up. So some of them brought about by the pandemic, some others probably by unique market needs. So most of you might know, Southeast Asia region, there's really a huge potential because of population size, right? So while there are varying degrees of maturity in the tech ecosystem in each country, for example, like Indonesia versus Singapore, or Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, etc. So here are some key trends that we have kind of observed, and we'll like to share them with you. So the first key trend is definitely health tech as an upcoming sector, especially in this environment. So apart from the pandemic alone, there's also an increasing aging population. So and issues like underdeveloped infrastructure, the lack of supply of quality doctors, etc., that spark more innovation in this area. So according to a Deloitte study, the public healthcare spend is currently at 420 US billion in Southeast Asia, and is projected to grow to around 740 billion by 2025. So we also do see some rising verticals over there, in areas like telemedicine, virtual consultations, digital diagnostic, like using your AI for early detection of cancer, and also management of healthcare information. So this is the second one. So it's really surprising that this hasn't really boomed yet. So it's a really hot sector now with loads of startups trying to really take a crack at it. So no one has really emerged to be a winner yet, or probably because edutech is not a winner takes it all kind of sector. So in this case, we are considering edutech to include education for all walks of life. So including e-learning for students to skills training for working adults. So key pain points over here would basically be issues like inconsistent quality of training, teaching across institutions, logistical inaccessibility because COVID has impacted the ability to gather physically in schools, right? So especially in the emerging countries. So whereas for Singapore, it would be more of issues like employee training, whereby more and more companies are looking to upskill their workers. So some of the rising verticals that we see would usually be the e-learning platforms. So your K-12 education, so 6 to 16-year-old, creation of unique content. So for example, via films, music, or virtual field trips. There are also more learning management platforms that we see nowadays, whereby they try to make a better version of a Google Classroom to kind of help to facilitate the parent-teacher interaction. And the last key trend, so is B2B, SaaS, and SME business solutions. So I would typically classify this particular trend into two broad buckets. So enterprise solutions and those focusing on SMEs. So for enterprise solution startups, based on the different batches of the program that Lana and I both run, so they will usually look into establishing in Singapore first and then skip the Southeast Asia region and to go global. Because most enterprises, most MNCs typically don't have HQ in other parts of Southeast Asia other than Singapore. So hence, most of them would be this would be the usual route that startups take as well, focusing on Singapore and then proceed to other larger markets globally. As for Southeast SME focused startups, so they would usually start localizing their product to a particular market or region. So for example, startups targeting SMEs, they will go to places like your Jakarta, Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, and also Singapore, because there's a huge pool of SMEs. So, besides all of that, so the main three verticals would be inventory and process management, your digital bookkeeping, and of course, AR/VR solutions for SMEs in retail. So especially in this current environment to help them better convert their sales online. So being able to know what problems that require solutions in your own country is just the first step, right? So many startups want to solve a problem they see or face, and this actually, believe it or not, limits them. So in wanting to create a solution, besides being able to identify who your solution is for, it's also crucial to see how your solution can be used to address other markets besides the one that you are targeting your home country. So the question I'm asking is, are you thinking global? So as a startup, especially one in a growth stage, you have some traction, some revenue, maybe even repeat customers, right? So the next thing you obviously would ask yourself is how do you scale? So apart from the obvious, like, oh, you should get more customers, you should raise more funds, get more money. The key here is really to think global, and we have 3 key steps for you on how do you do that. So the first one being, talent exists everywhere. So you might want to think about, building your team, your winning team remotely. So depending on the nature of your business, to be able to access the best talent and and to build your winning team, especially if you operate in an area with a competitive hiring situation, you have to look outside. So there will always be talent within your country, but in a world that we live today, right, where borders are now really digital. So everyone is like working across borders. You might want to consider remote workers. So talents can be found anywhere. So, really just to keep your options open. Second one being, experiment, adjust, and then experiment again. So when you are planning to launch your business, always conduct rapid experimentation first to know if there's really indeed a product market fit. So be intentional about your goals when you enter the market. Give yourself deadlines, set clear objectives. Example, like, how many customers you need in order to build a team there. If you can't find a product market fit, pivot. If you can't pivot at that point in time, move to other markets. And the third one being, the startup journey doesn't have to be a lonely one, right? So we believe that all roads have been traveled on. There's bound to be someone out there who can support you. So at 500 alone, we have a global mentor network that supports and guides the journey of startups. So get a mentor in order for you to understand the market fast, either individually, through a program, etc. So many startups don't really like to go through this approach, as there are always doubts to do so, right? Like, will the mentor waste my time? How do I know it's the right mentor, etc., etc. So, but often, this is often the quickest way to test your market. So to test, to also learn from the pros, the industry pros, and find your product market fit quickly. And then once you're armed with the right team, sufficient data from the experiments, and you have somebody to guide you, you are ready to try accessing a new market. So at 500, we want to be part of that journey. So our carefully designed market access program, like the global launch. So we get startups market ready in 16 weeks, either in the US market or the Singapore market. So it's one that supports this global mindset per se. So the program itself is split into two phases. Phase 1, which is an 8-week virtual program designed to help founders formulate a go-to-market strategy, things like conduct experiment and really be on your way to set up your company locally. Whereas for phase 2, it's an in-person, in-market program. You'll be there locally to get yourself plugged into the local community and market. So there are two main programs under Global Launch. One is Global Launch San Francisco, whereby Singapore-based startups get to go to the US, and Global Launch Singapore, whereby global startups from all around the world expand into Singapore. So we do it both ways because we know that there's a need for such cross-border exchange program that helps the startup not only to understand the market access, but also build a support system and network. And of course, by being part of the program, startups will get tailored industry mentorship, attend the master classes, get up to speed on market knowledge. And also besides that, there will be networking sessions conducted where you get to meet the local players. And when you join this program, you'll naturally be part of the 500 Global family, whereby you enjoy a lifetime mentorship from our mentor community, as well as exclusive perks from our network partners. So these are some of the success stories that we have had over the short span of the last 2 years. So both Lena and I, we run 3 batches, of Global Launch till now. And for Global Launch San Francisco, we have brought over 30 startups to expand into US. So 3 of the Singapore alumni are EV. So EV is an AI solution startup. They have successfully completed a 6-month pilot with Siemens. And then Trains, a digital supply chain platform. They have managed to ink a deal with US-based software firm R3. And lastly, Affable. So they have managed to raise the 2 million funding to expand into US. So the opportunities are endless. So what we do is really to equip founders with the skills, knowledge, and network, and then you can go and knock on doors and really get into the market right. So the great news is we are now accepting applications. So for both programs, Global Launch San Francisco Phase 2, which is the in-person immersion, and also Global Launch Singapore Phase 1, which is the virtual program. So apply by 2nd of July, 6 p.m. Singapore time if you are keen, and there will be priority review, just exclusively for this session if you apply before 30th of June. So both programs will run for 8 weeks, from 2nd of August to 24th of September this year. So visit us at global-launch.500.com for more information. So if you are ready to take your next step to solving global problems with a global mindset, come join our Global Launch program and get yourself started. So thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to, if we have time, we can address some of the questions now. If not, feel free to email them to us at global.launch@500.co.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Felicia, and we're still waiting to hear from Leonard, but Leonard, you'll be jumping in right when we have a Q&A, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, that's cool. All right. So the good news is we do have questions, and the first one, the first two rather comes from Jose. Jose, Felicico. Hi, Jose. Jose, I'd like to welcome you to use the Q&A tool to ask your questions, but we're going to take our questions that came into the chat right now. So Jose has a question for Felicia, and he says to Felicia, can I migrate my single proprietorship company registered in the Philippines into a startup under 500 startups?
So Jose, I believe you're asking about, is it regarding the program, the Global Launch program that you're keen on asking about? Oh, is Jose able to?
Yeah, I think Jose, you can use the Q&A tool to type in your message to us as well. He says yes, Felicia.
Okay. Yeah. So for the one that is outgoing, I think I'll let Leonard address that. So the one that is coming into Singapore, the Global Launch Singapore, for global startups coming to Singapore, there's no need to register your company before you join the program, because that's the main goal, that we will help you work towards incorporation in Singapore, working with our network partners, etc. So whereas, the one that's outgoing, Leonard, do you want to address that for Singapore-based startup?
Right. For Singapore-based startups, you do not need to be a Singapore-based company. And the reason is we eventually want to take you to the US. And so we work with a lot of Singapore-based companies to help them grow here in the US. I'm based actually in Silicon Valley. And I was a founder here previously. So I'd actually had an enterprise SaaS company that actually went through 500 startups, also raised about $5 million in funding from Silicon-based Valley investors. So we take a lot of the startups from Singapore and really kind of help them understand the nuances and the differences of building a business in the US. And so that's a lot of what we do. But once you come to the US, in terms of registration, typically if you want to get fundraising from the US, most investors here want to see you registered as a Delaware C Corp. We would obviously walk you through this and talk you through the process. You don't have to be that before you start the program, but that's generally what happens once a lot of these companies want to actually fundraise in the US.
Okay, I think Jose also has a follow-up question in the sense that he's saying, is it possible that his startup can be supported by subscription membership by angel investors and VCs? Because his startup supports IPOS program, right? Valuation of intangible assets and intellectual properties for Singapore SMEs. So Jose, I suppose your question is, can your revenue model be based on subscription membership by angel investors and VCs? Okay, Felicia and Leonard, what do you guys say?
Yeah, so we are really open, industry agnostic at the moment, to accept all types of applications from all over the world. So currently, we still will, being part of the application process, it also means that all the startups will go through an interview process, and then the team will kind of evaluate whether or not there's a fit for you. So, aligning on what your expectations are, what you want to gain out of the program, and then we'll kind of align it and share from our perspective.
Okay, anything else from Leonard or Felicia?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot here that we'd have to dig into. To answer your specific question around, can your business model be a subscription business model for investors, right? Like, I don't know. Right, like I honestly, I had to dig in a little bit more in terms of what you're actually offering. I probably have some initial hypotheses, but this is where we would typically have a discussion, right? And every startup that comes to the program has unique situations, and the founders, honestly, are the ones who are the experts in the room. They typically understand the industry forwards and backwards. Hopefully, generally they've already sold into the industry previously, or understand how to sell into that industry if they're a B2B company. And that's where we've seen a lot of the success, right? Like But honestly, we can definitely walk through your specific situation or any situation to understand, okay, what's the right business model to approach, how do you do this? And what Felicia was mentioning before, that second point around founder to experiment, that is actually one of the critical features of the founder to actually succeed. It's the speed of iteration. Okay, now that I get some feedback from customers, what do I take from that information? How do I adjust my business model? How do I adjust my sales model, my marketing model, whatever it might be, so that I actually can grow much faster than where I am right now? And so that's a lot of what we try to teach you through our different various programs that we have.